Hi, I'm George. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm here in Battersea Park, which is my local park here in southwest London, and it's actually quite a warm day today. It's late November, but the weather's warm, it's quite mild, and it's not raining, so I thought what a great day just to go out and do a quick plein air painting of the scene behind me. There's a lot of autumn leaves still on the tree, and I really love those golden yellow colours, so I'm going to try and paint some of that in, and some of this reflection in the water as well. So I'm excited to start painting and make the most of this warm winter weather. Remember to please subscribe to my channel, and let's start painting. Here I start by sketching in the general shapes of the composition using raw umber paint. One thing I like about this scene and the value structure within the scene is that the trees create a triangular shape to the sky, so the top section of the sky points down in a triangular shape to the center of the painting, which is then mirrored by the lighter section of the water in the foreground. So you have these two opposing triangles, which leads the viewer's eyes into the middle of the painting. I start by painting the lightest sections of the painting first, with the very lightest area being this section of clouds near the horizon, where I've used almost entirely titanium white with a small touch of my lemon yellow and a small touch of Naples yellow, just to give this a slightly warm glow, as these clouds are getting lit by sunlight, which is a warm light source. I find it useful to paint the lights down first, as this will give me a key for the scene. I know these are the lightest areas, and therefore I can compare other areas in the painting in relation to this. And also, the nature of oil paint is it will stay wet for the whole duration of the painting. So if you try and paint a really light section of paint on top of an area which already has paint, the two sections will mix and the light paint won't be as light. So it can be a real battle to paint light paints once you've covered the painting in darker colours. Hence why I've chosen to paint the light colours first when using this alla prima method. If you are painting on a painting over a longer period of time using an indirect painting method, where you're painting on top of dry layers of paint, you can get away with painting the light paints on top of the dark paints. But definitely when you're painting wet paint into wet paint, I try and keep the lights separate and the dark separate, so I don't have to try and paint either of them on top of each other. As I paint these trees, I'm trying to simplify the shapes of the trees and paint them in as a general block of colour. And I'm not painting all the individual leaves or the light breaking through at this stage. I'm going to save these smaller details for later on in the painting. My main concern for this stage of the painting is trying to get the overall value impression and the general colours for each area. I'm trying to create the sort of impression that I would see when I squint at the scene, so almost like a blurry photograph. And then later on, once I've got everything in the right place and the general colours and values are correct, I can then add in these smaller details and also add in subtler shifts in colour and value within the sections of the trees. So one tip when painting reflections, such as this here in the water, everything is going to be slightly darker and slightly less chromatic, so the colours won't be as vibrant as the original subject that they're reflecting. So for example, this sort of grey colour to the section of water in light which is reflecting the sky, it won't be quite as bright as the actual sky. And likewise, the sections which are reflecting the trees are going to be slightly darker and the yellows won't be quite as chromatic, as it is a reflection, so it can't be as bright as the original subject that it is reflecting. I also find it's helpful to map out the pattern of the reflections and stick with this pattern, as if you observe the water, these ripples will change constantly as the wind moves across the water and birds create their own ripples in the lake. So I like to make up my mind with the pattern of the ripples quite early on. That way I don't have to paint wet paint over wet paint, and I can keep the light section and the dark sections quite simplified, as ripples in water tend to be quite sharp, definitive shapes. To paint this tree, which is the tallest tree in my composition, so using a bit of the darker paint that I've used for the general colour of the tree and the leaves, to pick out some small details of the leaves on the edge where the tree meets the sky. So just by getting this accurate silhouette of the tree, it will give the effect of the tree being covered in leaves without having to paint all the individual leaves within the darker sections of paint. I'm now going back in with a light paint, which is the same as the sky value, and I'm using a loaded brush and applying this paint quite thickly over paint that I put down for the general tree colour, and this is giving the effect of light breaking through the tree. So here I'm going back and painting into the sky a bit more, as over the period that I've been painting, the clouds have moved quite a bit, and there's some really nice light blue colour of the sky shining through, breaking through the clouds. So using a mix of cerulean blue and titanium white, I'm applying this paint in some sections using a filbert brush, just to give that impression of the blue sky breaking through the clouds, which adds a bit more colour to the scene. And also I can pick up some of this light blue in the reflection of the water as well. And this is one of the things that I like about painting outdoors from life on plein air, is over the duration of the painting there'll be certain light effects, certain things which pop up in the scene which look nice, and as you're painting over a period of hours you can pick and choose which things you want to include in the painting. For example, this light blue sky which is breaking through the clouds, or some of the birds in the foreground, or perhaps some of the shapes which the clouds have. You don't just have to choose a particular moment and paint it, you can actually paint a series of moments throughout the section of the painting, as long as the light effect is coherent. So as long as you're picking up the same colours in the water that are being reflected from the sky, and as long as the shadows are pointing in the same directions, you have a lot of freedom to choose what you want to depict in the scene, and you'll still create a realistic scene which can in fact look even nicer than if you were just to have captured a photo of a particular singular moment. So here I'm painting in the fallen autumn leaves onto the lake, and I'm painting them on top of the reflections that I've already painted down. And in some areas these leaves have pulled together to make a general orangey yellow section across the water. I'm using quite thick paint so I can paint them on top of the existing reflections without the colours mixing, and this allows those leaves to keep that really orangey yellow colour that they have without mixing with this browny green layer of paint underneath. So a painting of the lakes in Battersea Park wouldn't be complete without painting in some of the birds, which you see every time that you come and visit the park. So here I'm painting in a few coots who have been swimming mostly in the foreground of the lake for the whole duration that I've been painting. So I'm going to paint two small birds here in the lighter section of water, as these birds are very dark and therefore they are more visible against the light section of water which is caused by the reflection of the sky. So I hope you enjoyed that video of me painting here in Battersea Park. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, I really appreciate it. And also please do subscribe to my channel. You can also follow me on Instagram at Frederick Thomas. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.